Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Titanovic's Deck Tech. Today we're gonna be looking at Anowon, the Ruined Thief. And the purpose of today's video is just to look at some of the new Dimir cards and just cards from the new set, March of Machines, that came out that synergize well with Anowon. And I mean, some of them just kind of stood out quickly, while others, I kind of saw how they played during the early access event that's been going on YouTube, and kind of also just from cracking some packs at the local store. So yeah, so anyways, if you're not familiar, this is a rogue deck, rogue themed, based on Anowon, the Ruined Thief, a 2 colorless, 1 blue, 1 black mana commander. It's a legendary creature. It's a vampire rogue. Other rogues you control get +1/+1. Whenever one or more rogues you control deal combat damage to a player, that player mills a card for each 1 damage dealt to them. If the player mills at least 1 creature card this way, you draw a card. This is a fantastic mill enabler for your opponents, which can be in a downside, can be a positive. So that's kind of, the price you pay. Sometimes your opponent will benefit from the graveyard. However, we will definitely benefit from the milling cards. We do have some synergies in this deck that capitalize on building the graveyards up, and we'll talk a little bit about that as the video goes on. Another key part about Anowon, if you're not familiar with this card, is that you basically want to spread out your damage to different opponents. Once you meet the criteria for milling a creature card from an opponent library, then you may draw a card. So you get up to 1 card. You don't draw multiples if multiple creatures are milled, but however, based on the fact that you mill cards from multiple opponents, you can get a card from each of them if they do each separately mill a creature card, at least 1. So that's the criteria. So you draw lots of cards, spreading out your damage to multiple opponents, gaining up to 3 cards per cycle is pretty good. There's some just good draw effects already in here with some of the spells that we have too. So you're just always having a lot of cards in your hand. So it's really cool. Good, really nice way to play Dimir. I love the synergy between the creature cards and just the kind of the flexibility that you have, being able to hold up mana if you need to during your opponent's turn, flash in certain threats if you need to as well. It's just a fun play style. I enjoy it very much. So some of the new cards that we can get into. This one is just really popped out, and I did see Croaky's playing this card, and he definitely showed it off. It's really phenomenal, even in a best of 1 format, which is nice. So, and for Commander, this will be even better. What happens with this card in particular? If you're not familiar with the new cards that just came out, there's a new type of card style called Battle. So this card is an Invasion of Amonkhet. It's a dual-sided card, 1 colorless, 1 island, 1 swamp. And read it. Battle Siege. As a siege enters, choose an opponent to protect it. You and others can attack it. When it's defeated, exile it, then cast it transformed. So you get like an enter the battlefield trigger when it comes onto the battlefield. So the enter the battlefield trigger is when Invasion of Amonkhet enters the battlefield, each player mills 3 cards. So each player, that's nice. Then each opponent discards a card, and you may draw a card. So instant value already, your opponents each have to discard a card. So good text there for the Commander play group. And then you get to also draw a card. So you can see this as 4 life, more like kind of like a planeswalker that doesn't have abilities to decrease or increase. So basically you can see this this particular battle as having 4 life. So once it's defeated, you get to choose an opponent it goes to, preferably an open opponent that's not really showing much resistance to our attacks. And I'll flip this over. So this is the Lesotep Convert. So once this battle is defeated, you may have Lesotep Convert enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature card in the graveyard, except it's a 4/4 black zombie in addition to other types. So really cool creature here, where we're gonna have a lot of flexibility and choose any creature card from the opponent's graveyard. So I mean, there's lots of hits that you can have, and you know, the 4/4 is not a bad baseline stat, and it's just a lot of upside because creatures, you know, have I'm sure there's a couple bombs in each opponent's deck, and if you can get hold of a right creature with the right kind of text box, then you can really start you know, having that advantage. So I really like this card a lot. I think it's fantastic. And I believe another interesting aspect about this, and I'll revisit the videos to watch. I'm curious if it still has summoning sickness. I think the incubation tokens aren't affected by summoning sickness, but these likely are when it does enter the battlefield, because you know, it is defeated and it enters the battlefield again. So it probably is affected by summoning sickness, but those incubation tokens are kind of interesting as well. And I encourage you to look into those. Those are cool. So first of all, just starting like up with an instant upgrade to the deck. So that is nice, right? Jinkataxis. Jinkataxis. Jenny G. This is the Ginster. So this deck is perfect for Jenny G. It's a nice body, 5/5, 5 mana. It has ward on it, so it's kind of evasive. It also draws cards based on the non-creature spells we play, so it's a card generating engine. And then another interesting aspect of this card is the transformation, and there's criteria involved. So for 3 colorless and 1 blue at instant speed, you exile Jitaxius, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, so it is a sorcery, but it is an ability, so you can't really interact with it as long as it's on the battlefield. There's some cards that do, but not many. Activate only as a sorcery, and only if you have 7 or more cards in hand. So this deck typically will have 7 cards in the, whether you have your Reliquary Tower or your Thought Vessel in the battlefield, or you've played a Seagate Restoration prior. I mean, those are conditions for having unlimited hand size, but this deck usually has 7 cards in hand, and sometimes you do have to discard at end step with this deck. So that criteria is going to be very consistent to have. So this is pretty wild once you transform this thing. So the Great Synthesis, as a saga enters, and after your draw step, add a lore counter. So when it does come down, draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand. You have no maximum hand size for as long as you control the Great Synthesis. Fantastic. So we just draw like 7 more cards. If we have like a Thought Vessel, we're going to draw like 10 or 11 cards, because this deck just pops off with cards. Return all non-Phyrexian creatures to their owner's hand. That's an interesting, you know, part of the spell. But I'm fine with this, because you'll see in chapter 3 that we can basically cast any number of spells from our hand without paying their mana costs. So it becomes an omniscience. So it's just win the game. I'm pretty sure this card is just like a 4 mana win the game type of card, which is kind of insane. You should be able to like combo off, and I have like so many extra turn spells in this deck that you should get the job done. Yeah, so that's kind of absurd. It's definitely a win con, so we're adding win cons to the deck, which is nice. So that card was nice. I just kind of wasn't even expecting that. I haven't seen it too much of it in the early access videos, but I just happened to open it in a pack, and I was like, wow, that card is sweet. So it kind of made sense. This card, I did have intentions to going to the card store and picking up the Sheoldred for my rogue deck. And the reasoning for this is that it also has, it also works very well with this deck, because we mill a lot of cards into opponents' graveyards, and that again is one of the criterias for the transformation. So Sheoldred is a 3 colorless, 2 swamp, menace, 4/5. When Sheoldred enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature or planeswalker, so a nice ETB there. Then for 4 colorless and 1 swamp, exile Sheoldred, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery, and only if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. And we're going to definitely be meeting that criteria. Our opponents are going to have many cards. One of them is at least going to have 8 cards in the graveyard. In the True Scriptures, I think I love the second chapter, like really, like it's really cool, but there's just so much value right throughout it. So for step 1, for each opponent, destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker that player controls. So once again, you get to destroy a creature or planeswalker. They already had to sacrifice one before. There's no preference. It doesn't have to be a non-token or anything. Each opponent discards 3 cards for chapter 2. So let me read that again. Each opponent discards 3 cards, then mills 3 cards. Yeah, just kind of wild. 3 cards is kind of debilitating for some decks that are really trying to, you know, kind of top deck, or, you know, are they about to go into top deck mode? So it's pretty wild. Really cuts them off. And then chapter 3, put all creature cards from graveyards on the battlefield under your control. Exile the true scriptures, then return it to the battlefield. So yeah, then it becomes a Rise of the Dark Realms. And once again, just if you can't deal with it, then you're going to have some issues. So just added like some crazy win cons. Like I thought like before, just having this was like a fantastic win con in itself for this deck, which it is. But I just like added like, you know, 2 more win cons for these Praetors. So I'm just kind of beyond right now. This is probably like my favorite deck now. I'm probably going to be playing this a lot. So Teferi the Temple program is the 3 colorless 2 island planeswalker. Whenever you draw a card, put a loyalty counter on Teferi Temple Pilgrim. 0 mana, draw a card. The -2, you get to create a 2/2 blue spirit token. Whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. So many versatility there, depending on what you want to start doing with it. The -12, a target opponent chooses a permanent they control and returns it to the owner's hand. Then they shuffle each non-land permanent they control into its owner's library. It's very, very good ultimate. And as we keep the card draw kind of going in this deck, you'll definitely be able to pull off an ultimate on opponents every now and then, more consistently than not, I would say. In that the -12 is, if I can explain it to you, they choose a permanent that they have on the battlefield that pops back to their hand. All other permanents they control other than lands goes into the library. And that's just a one-sided kind of event. You don't have to, you yourself don't have to do that. That's just something the opponent has to do. So they'll pick their best card on the battlefield and they'll lose everything else to the library. So as if you know, if you're just even getting into this game, you could see that that's a very powerful effect. So this is definitely another great addition that we have to this deck, the Teferi Temple Pilgrim. And then we'll just kind of whiz through the lands here so you kind of get an idea of what we're running here. Some of the more value lands that we're running. For instance, we have the Takenuma, which is going to help us mill some cards and return creatures or planewalkers to our graveyard. It's just a nice channel land. Just keeps our gas going if we need it. Otawara, this is really great. We have a lot of legendary creatures in our deck, so we can play this for very cheap and bounce cards back to artifact, creatures, enchantments, or planeswalkers to their owner's hand. So that's a really nice card. Then we have our dual lands here. I don't have a Polluted Delta, so, you know, of course I'll be like kind of upgrading this deck still as we go on, but Shipwreck Marsh is fantastic. It's a slow land. Watery Grave, a shock land. These produce islands and swamps. Morphic Pool. Fabled Passage is a dual land. Underground River is also a dual land. This is a pain land. It deals 1 damage to you each time you produce an island or swamp. And then otherwise you can, for free, without pain life, add colorless. Clear Water Pathway. This can you have to decide what you want it to be, island or swamp, when it comes to the battlefield. Darkslick Shores enters the battlefield. It's a fast land, so we need to play this on our first, second, or third turn to have it come in untapped. Otherwise it comes in tapped. Ice Tunnel, this is a dual land. It's a snow land too, so it will help us with our Blood on the Snow, because we will run some snow lands in here. Faceless Haven, this is a channel land, so I can activate this for 3 snow, kind of come in as a rogue, a 4/3 rogue, and then I'll get all the benefits, of course, if I have Anowon on the battlefield and whatever else is going on. This is a key card for our deck, the Reliquary Tower, because it lets us have no maximum hand size. It also comes in untapped and add a colorless. Secluded Courtyard is the tribal land, and I encourage you to find this card if you're running any sort of tribal humans, clerics, or merfolk, or any multicolored tribal deck, because this can spend, you choose a creature type when it comes on, and then you can create mana of any color to cast those creature spells with those colors. So fantastic. Command Tower just adds one color of our mana pool for our commander colors. Exotic Orchard will produce colors relating to our opponent's mana that they produce. Comes in untap. Here's our islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 snow-covered islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 snow-covered swamps. All right, to our artifacts here. This is just concluding some different forms of ramp. Talisman of Dominance, 2-mana artifact colorless. Can add colorless or a island or a swamp. If you do so for either of those, it will deal damage to you, 1 damage. Bind of Thassa, this is based on combat damage, so if our attacking creatures deal combat damage to a player, we draw a card for each of the creatures that deal damage. And this also can make opponent's creatures attack too, which is kind of interesting. I like that. So if for 1 colorless and an island, I can tap it and creatures your opponent's control attack this turn if they will. That's very interesting. I like that card. That will be very helpful in some circumstances. Soul Ring. This is the 1 colorless. Comes on the battlefield, adds 2 colorless immediately. Fantastic. Best card in the deck, probably. Felwar Stone. This is a 2 colorless. Add 1 mana of any color that a land and opponent controls could produce. And then the Arcane Signet. So add 1 mana of any color and your commander's color identity. And the Dowsing Dagger. This is a 2-mana artifact. Equips for 2 whenever we have our creature deal combat damage to an opponent. This flips over and becomes a Lotus Land, so it produces 3 colors of any type of mana. The only downside is you have to provide the, when it comes on the battlefield, 2/2 plant creature tokens with Defender to an opponent. And then the Thought Vessel, so this is our last mana ramp that we have in the deck. It also provides us to have no maximum hand size, which is fantastic, and it adds 1 to our mana pool. Very nice. Now I'll get to the creatures. And there's plenty of creatures in this deck. There is one I'm still like kind of looking on my radar, is the Thieving Mastermind, which is the World Champion card. It's a rogue and it draws lots of cards too. So we're gonna be looking through the list and kind of finding room for it. It's gonna be going in once I obtain it. So this is the Dathi Voidwalker here, and I'm also gonna like kind of go back to this. I'm still kind of seeing the balance too for this deck, and I do think I do need some interaction, so I do have a spot open for it right now, but I think that will be for a Pact of Negation. So I think that's kind of what I'm feeling for the last spot. But it could be a creature too, and I'm not gonna really overthink it too much, but it could be that Thieving Mastermind. Could be like that could be a good fit too. So we'll see. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So I have Dathi Voidwalker. This is a 2-mana 3/2 with 2 black. It has Shadow. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter on it. People believe that, and I've seen that there's questions like, do you still get to do Anowon's ability because the cards are going to exile? The thing with Anowon, how it's worded is that basically the cards are revealed, and then based on that's how the cards are drawn. So even though they go into exile, you still get to draw the cards from Anowon if a creature is revealed. So that's kind of the nice part about that. So you don't have to worry about the Dathi Voidwalker being like a non-bow with the Anowon. So yes, you will still draw the cards with this. So 3/2 Shadow, and So if you get anything juicy, you can go ahead and the next turn sacrifice this card by just tapping it, and you get to play that that card without paying its mana cost. So it's fantastic. Nighthawk Scavenger. This is a really good, just really good beefy card for our deck. Every time it's come out when I've played, it at least has 9 power. So and now that we have battles and stuff, it could even get better, you know. So it'd be very cool. Sig, this card just draws a lot of cards for us. If opponent loses 3 life or more a turn, we get to draw a card, and that criteria is met once. So it's kind of nice. Can drop to 3 cards in a cycle. Brazen Borrower, this is good because it gives you the option for bouncing with the Petty Theft. It's an instant speed spell, and then also can be flashed in as a 3/1. So very nice too. And flying. It can only block creatures with flying as well. This is a nice 1-drop we have. It's a 1 black, Changeling Outcast. It can't block and it can't be blocked. It's a Changeling, so it will be a rogue. Nice card. Frog Tosser Banneret. I really like this card. When it comes down, it makes all our goblins and rogue spells cost 1 less to play. So that makes all our rogues much cheaper to play, and I really like that part about it. It does have haste too, which is nice. Interesting hasty black creature. This card has really proved its power, the Mercurial Spell Dancer. So I love the fact that it just can't be blocked. It's a good body, has 2/1. And when we play a non-creature spell, we put an oil counter on it. Whenever it has 2 oil counters on it and we deal combat damage, we can remove those oil counters and we can copy the next spell we play that turn. Next instant or sorcery. So it's just a great card. Thieving Skydiver, this was just kind of our utility 2-drop. We're looking to hopefully get this in our opening hand and, you know, play it pretty early and steal like a Soul Ring or some, you know, some other cheap artifact that helps us ramp a little bit better. So Thieving Skydiver is fun. This has been a fantastic card, the Stinko Drinker Bandit. This thing is absurd, and I really got to see its power the other day. It really gets our creatures really strong. So, you know, in terms of interaction, I think my last card, and I know it sounds kind of, you know, I think it's fine. I think a Coat of Arms would be fine. There was a game yesterday I was just thinking, and if I had played like a Coat of Arms, I would have just like been able to win the game at a point. And this card would really help that too. Oh, wow. Yeah. So we'll consider that. Coat of Arms is kind of, the only thing about that is it will also buff up your opponent's creatures if they're playing tribal too. So that's obviously a downside. Wrinkle, this is a fantastic rogue, probably one of my favorite cards. I have this in all my black decks. It just seems to be like kind of a important versatile card to have in your black decks, where it can have a kind of a lot of utilities. It can draw cards. It can be used to just make opponents sacrifice creatures. Also can make people discard cards. So I really like Wrinkle a lot. Grim Hireling. This card is just a house, because whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create 2 treasure tokens. So it's kind of a goofy, strong card. Yeah, very good 4-drop for us. And if you're not familiar, treasure tokens produce 1 mana when they're sacrificed. So yeah, it just really gives you a big mana advantage. Moorfolk Whim Robber, this is a nice 1/1 flying. Has some upside where if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, you can sacrifice it for a card. And upon hitting opponent, it does mill card as well. Notion Thief, this is kind of playing into our flash game plan, and if anybody you know, plays any wheels or anything like that, then we could flash this in during some circumstances and we could draw all the cards instead of them. So Notion Thief is kind of a fun card. Prickly Bogart, I balanced the 1/1s we have, and this one isn't as evasive as some of the other 1-drops we have, but it is black, and I kind of like how, because I do play Dimir mana, that some are black, some are blue. So it does have fear. So it can be blocked by artifact and black creatures only. Soaring Thought Thief. This is a card from Zendikar, and it is very good at enabling the mill from our opponents. I mean, we're not going to be milling them out, but it helps us get to a criteria for some of our cards pretty easily. And you can see really the game plan of this is to mill opponents, get cards into the graveyard, and draw cards, and also hurt them. So you get like the best of all the worlds. And really great about this is all the flying, and you know, there's like a lot of more you know, dimensions to this kind of game plan. You get to play things on your opponent's turn. It's not like so linear. So it's definitely something you have to get used to and practice. So that's what's fun about it. Ona's Blackguard, 1/1. This has been a really fantastic card when I do get to play with it. It has flying. Each other rogue creature you control enters battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. So very debilitating for our opponents. This is also a fantastic card, Keeper of the Keys. When it comes down the battlefield, it gives all our creatures unblockable for the turn, and also makes us be the monarch, so it draws even more cards. Sweet. Metallic Mimic, a great 2-drop. This just comes down and can be a rogue, and then we name rogue, and then other rogues that come down come in with additional 1/1 counter on it, so they get an instant buff. Sweet. Sakashima the Imposter. This is great for copying our commander, and lets us have like 2 Anowons on the battlefield at once. It's very cool. So it's just a shapeshifter rogue itself, and it comes onto the battlefield as copying any card, and it no longer has a legendary title. It just becomes Sakashima the Imposter. Oh, it becomes Sakashima the Imposter rather than keeping the name of like Anowon, so it gets away from the legend rule. So very cool. It can also be bounced back to your hand, so it has some evasiveness. Glasspool Mimic. This is a very cool copy card. You may have a Glasspool Mimic enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature you control, except as a shapeshifter rogue, in addition to its other types. And it can also be a land as well, which is really cool. It's a multi-phase card. So got lots of shapeshifters here. Slitherblade. Slitherblade can't be blocked. This is a 1-mana card. This is a 1/2, so it's nice. So it's one of those 1-drops that are very evasive. Zareth Song. This is a 3-mana colorless, 1 blue, 1 black, and I swear this card like makes people scoop, because when you play it and it hits like that, you basically take any permanent from the graveyard. So I've seen like this card just come down, and a player will just scoop it up, you know, because they're just like, I don't want any of that. So yeah, I like the Sarasan. So for its effect, it does have flash, so you can flash it in for the 5 mana, or you can pay 2 colorless, 1 island and 1 swamp. You return an unblocked attacking rogue to our owner's hand, so basically something that's unblocked during our combat step, which is usually like 2 or 3 creatures. We pick an opponent, probably the one we want that has the nice stuff in their graveyard, or that's just not being able to block what we have, and once it hits, we get to take a permanent from the graveyard and put it onto the battlefield without paying its casting cost. Fantastic. Thieves Guild Enforcer. This is a very strong mill enabler, and it's just has really good value when you have an opponent that has 8 or more cards. It becomes a 3/2 Death Touch, which is nice. And whenever a rogue comes onto the battlefield, each opponent mills 2 cards. It's very similar to the Soaring Thought Thief, where the opponents are milling cards. It's not just one target opponent, it's all the opponents at once. And this is our last shapeshifter that we have, the Clever Imposter. I've had this thing come down and like copy things like Coma and things like that before, so I really like the Clever Imposter. It just can come down, it can enter the battlefield as a copy of any non-land permanent on the battlefield. So that's the extent of the creatures. And then we'll get into the instance real quick. So Drown on the Lock, this serves as a criteria for 8 cards in the opponent's library. Or actually, I think it can actually, for the Drown on the Lock, it counters a card based on how many cards are in a particular graveyard. So for instance, if you had If the opponent had 5 cards in the graveyard, you can copy a spell up to that had 5 casting cost. And similarly, if they had like a creature that was 5 casting cost on the battlefield, if they had 5 cards in the graveyard, that would meet the criteria, and it could either destroy or counter a spell. So really useful for our deck to have both of those kind of. What a cool design where you can have the destroy or counter built into the card is very cool and very versatile. This is a really awesome counter spell. I just love that it's just can counter any non-creature spell for 1 island. And the downside, of course, they create 2 treasure tokens, but still, just like the power, you know, for 1 mana, you can just go ahead and counter anything. I think is just a fantastic offer you can't refuse. March of Swirly Mist. I just think this is a great card that you always kind of want to draw like toward the mid or late game. And you can just either protect the things you have, or, you know, maybe stop an opponent from doing the things that they're doing. So for a turn. So it's really good at phasing out things, and you can pitch cards in your hand too, which is nice. And we always have lots of cards in our hand to activate this. So it's a kind of a sneaky card too. Into the Story. This will cost 3 less for if opponent has 8 or more cards in a graveyard, and we'll draw 4 cards. Awesome card draw engine. Force of Will. So you may pay 1 life and remove a blue card in your hand from your game instead of paying Force of Will's casting cost. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to counter this loss of life. Counter target spell. So this is a perfect counter spell where we can just pitch a card from our hand without paying its cost and counter that spell, any spell. Malika Rebirth. This is another instant where it's a multi-phase card, so it can be played as a land, a tapped land. But for the 1 swamp, you can choose a target creature. You'll lose the life. Until end of turn, that creature gains. When this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped and under its control. Just so sweet that you can have this 1 mana card that can, you know, have that dual purpose. Yeah, it's a very good uncommon. Dark Ritual. This is just a great fast mana card. We want to definitely see this in our opening hand. It's going to help us get really ahead super fast and take control of the game. Deadly Rollick. If you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Exile target creature. And this was the kind of the flex card I have at the moment. And I think I discussed 2 of the options that I'm thinking of including in this deck. For instance, Force of Negation is one, you know, to have that extra interaction. And I'll go back in the video. I think the second choice that I was suggesting is kind of the one that I'm going to go with. I think because I have that card as well. So I'll go back and, you know, make sure I put that card in. I think it was a great suggestion, but I don't remember that on the top of my head. Maybe I will recall sooner or later. And then here's Notorious Throng. So you can, if you deal combat damage with a rogue, you can play this for its prowl cost. And what that lets you do is it lets you create X 1/1 Black Fairy rogue creature tokens with flying, where X is the damage dealt to your opponent's turn. I mean, this deck can deal so much damage to creatures, to opponents. Like you could deal like, I swear, you could deal like 30 damage to opponents over a turn. And if you played something like this, and if, for instance, you had like a Mercurial Spelldancer, you're just gonna win the game. Like, I promise you, you are. I mean, so this card is just wicked cool. So you create the fairies where X is the damage dealt to your opponents this turn. If the spell's prowl cost was paid, take an extra turn after this one. So this is a win con. Notorious Throng. Absolutely. An absolute win con. And I will be looking out for that card. Okay, Blood on the Snow. This is for works with our snow lands that we have. So it has the options of destroying all creatures, destroying all planeswalkers, one of the other. Then you return a creature or planeswalker card with a converted mechanic X or less from the graveyard to the battlefield, where X amount of snow spent to cast a spell. I'd say we usually have like 4 to 5 snow lands on the battlefield. We had plenty. This is the card, man. This is a super sweet card, this Scheming Symmetry. Yeah, I think this could be the card we have. I really love this deck. We get to basically tutor a card to the top of our library before combat. and the opponent does as well. We'll just basically we'll get through with them. They'll mill that card so they don't benefit from it, where we get to put the card in our hand once we do draw a card, because we usually draw cards. You know, once the creatures are milled, we meet that criteria with Anowon. So this card is fantastic. It's Gaming Symmetry. And just coming to the end now, we have the Seagate Restoration. This is a very pricey card, but it is a land. And for the 7 mana, we can draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand +1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game, which is fantastic. It can also be shocked in for 3 damage as an untapped island. Same goes with Agadim, where it could be shocked in for 3 life, untapped. This function is you get to go into your own graveyard, pay X cost +3 swamps, and deliver that many creatures with different casting costs back to your back to the graveyard from the to the battlefield. So fantastic. These are both very pricey cards. Then we have our extra turn cards in here. We have Time Warp. We already went over Notorious Throng as well. We also are playing Alron's Epiphany. So we have 3 turns cards in here. They're all very nice. This one is just 5 mana, take an extra turn, which is fine. Whereas the Alron's Epiphany is a foretell card, and then you can play 4 colorless, 2 islands, and the 6 mana, and you can make 2 bird tokens, and you take a turn. So nice little foretell card there. And we have Extinction Event. This will just exile any odds or evens from the battlefield for creatures. Knowledge Exploitation. Very nice card too for the Prowl. 3 colors, 1 island. You search your opponent's library for an instant sorcery card. You may play that card without paying its mana cost, and that player shuffles his or her library. So very cool card that you can just go into any opponent's library, find instance or sorcery, and play it. It's very cool. I like the reduction too with the Prowl. It makes it very, very accessible. Kindred Discovery. This is we're getting to the enchantments now, and all these enchantments are so fantastic. And this deck, and all, from my opinion, is just a fantastic deck in general. You know, and the enchantments like put in the back because it's like they take kind of a back seat, but they all are so very good. The Kindred Discovery, I'm going to draw a card for each rogue that comes on the battlefield, and whenever they attack. So that's kind of wild. They don't even have to deal damage, so I'm just trying like a million cards. Black Market Connection, that's the 3 mana enchantment where you get to draw a card at your upkeep, lose 2 life, make a treasure, lose a life, and then lose 3 life, make a shapeshifter, 3/2. So you're losing 6 life for all those abilities, which is fine. Reconnaissance Mission is 4 mana, 2 colorless, 2 islands. Whenever a creature control deals combat damage to player, you may draw a card. So not as strong as our Kindred Discovery, but 1 less mana, and that also can cycle. Mystic Remora, this is gonna just, in our opener, just draw like a ton of cards. It does have a cumulative upkeep of 1. Whenever a target opponent successfully casts an all-creature spell, you may draw a card. That player may pay 4 to counter this effect. They're just not going to do that. So we'll draw a ton of cards. Teferi's Ageless Insight. This card, whenever we draw an additional card from the over the ones that we had already drawn originally for the turn, we draw 2 cards instead. So you're just basically just drawing extra cards. It's kind of wild. Yep, it just kind of snowballs. And then Bitter Blossom is, and you can see like how all these work well with like Teferi and, you know, the Jin-Gitaxias. They're going to be working very well with those. Bitter Blossom, this is just going to create 1/1 fairies that fly every upkeep, which is really great. And then Rhystic Study. So whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless the player plays 1. So that is the deck there. So I will do a little bit of a shuffle up on it while I'm in here. And we can just maybe look at some hands. It's going to kind of be a little pat, you know, probably going to be some land flooding and some card flooding because we haven't shuffled too much, but just go ahead and shuffle these back together, see what happens. try to think of what that card I was thinking of to include. So Force of Negation is definitely a card that we can definitely want to consider, because like I said, we do have a lot of ways to pitch, because we do have lots of extra cards in this deck. I think another consideration is the Fairy Mastermind too. That could take that like kind of last spot. Before I had the Lightning Greaves in this deck, and I don't know, like I do like that card a lot. Of course, it's like, you know, very good at protecting our commander and such. But I don't know, like for this particular deck, it's not like this is like my, what would you call, my queen card, where I'm like really like, I mean, the rogues kind of just do their power, they kind of like operate well as themselves. So I think overall, like we have some pretty, I don't know if I really went over the Gix in here, but like for instance, like a Gix, this thing draws a ton of cards by itself too with these rogues who are so evasive. So I mean, just like having a Gix is great, you know. So lots of threats. What am I thinking? Like, what's going to be that last card that we put in here that really makes this go? I really wish I could put like a Lurrus or something in this deck, but you can't because it has white mana and it's casting cost, unfortunately. So you can't add it here because we're just playing the blue and the black. But yeah, I like the new set. I think it's really cool. I like the power level, and they seem to have like been like thinking of exactly what I needed. Just a couple more really strong cards to kind of work in. A couple more win cons. Do a couple more shuffles here, a couple more quick shuffles. Yeah, I'm like, counter magic is, you know, fantastic and all. I've been kind of like a little more unimpressed with some of the just like the 1-for-1 counter spells, and I think I have played way enough land in here. I had like Jawari Disruption, and I also had Counterspell in here for a moment, and those cards are fine. Jawari, I think is kind of really good in constructed formats that don't have like really big explosive mana engines. I think like for Commander, Jawari can kind of lose its zest, so to speak, because there is so much fast mana, and it seems very, very common that opponents kind of will have one mana just hanging out because they just have an abundance of mana from the mana rocks they play. And so Jawari was kind of sad for me. So I did take the Jawari out, and I didn't really like Counterspell because I think it's kind of telegraphed to an extent. When you have like, for instance, two blue mana open. So I'm definitely a fan of more of like the March of Swirling Mist and the pitching counter spells like Force of Will, Force of Negation. I think those will, you know, I think that'll be fine. I think like that could be a fine addition to the deck. So, but yeah, we shall see. All right, so we'll just go ahead and just lock these in and see what we kind of get in the opener and sign off and see if we get the mulligan on turn one. But yeah, you have to shuffle these cards so much after doing like a deck tech, and there's still you'll find like some pockets where there's like 6 lands kind of put together. That's fine though, it's fun. All right, here we go. Let's cut it up. All right, here we go. Oh, not bad, not bad. You like that one drop? Okay, a little bit of mana here. Lots of mana. It's okay. So that's kind of a little floodies there. No worries, no worries. Shuffle it up. It's not bad. We got some spells in there. It wasn't all lands. All right, let's go again. Ooh, that's a nice start. Ooh, that's pretty good. Yeah, I think I know exactly what I want to do here. Oh my god, bro. This draw is kind of wild. All right, so... Man, I kind of would like... Well, let's draw, because we would draw our 8th. There's kind of some options here. And I'm kind of curious, like, what you all might do with this kind of opener. I think kind of, I definitely want to get the Remora down, at least by, I think what I can do, I can have a very explosive start. So what I would do is I would start off with, the Snow-Covered Island is fine, to the Soul Ring, and then I would foretell the Alrund's Epiphany for the 2 colorless. So that would be our turn 1. That would be really crazy. And then what we could do for the next turn, and we would go ahead and just draw Watery Grave. That's good too. We could go ahead and probably shock in this Watery Grave, and we could play Mystic Remora, and then we can have Thilsgid Enforcer out, ready to flash in at our opponent's end step. Probably draw a ton of cards already. Really get ahead in cards with Mystic Remora. Looks like we're gonna have like a lot of little threats here. We'll definitely be able to get Anowon down and really start generating the card engines. So this looks great. So yeah, that's why I think like a Pact of Negation would do really well in here, because we definitely have cards to pitch. You know, we have these kind of like Merfolk Wind Robbers or a Slitherblade, where we could pitch those for counter magic. So yeah, I think that's kind of the choice, but I'll review the video, and I hope you enjoyed this deck tech. It was fun. Have a great day.